Today on CityCast Nashville, early voting for Tennessee's primary election starts this Friday. And if you're wondering what exactly you're voting for, we have got you covered. Tennessee Lookout Editor-in-Chief Holly McCall joins executive producer Whitney Pasterek and me to break down the biggest races, explain what all this redistricting means, and give you everything you need to know before heading to the polls. It's Monday, July 13th. I'm Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Holly, the last time you were here, it was so dramatic. You had to dash out mid-taping because the Tennessee Republicans were about to gerrymander our U.S. congressional districts. So with that said, how has that changed the vibes of this coming election?
Well, it completely shook up several congressional districts. District 9 is the one that was most dramatic. That is the Memphis district. It really did encapsulate Memphis. It's been held by Democrats since time immemorial, and Republicans wanted to make sure that Democrats could not have even one congressional district. So they built off what they did in 2022 when they cut Nashville's 5th district, up into 3 portions. And so they did that with Memphis, and it shook everything up. U.S. Rep. Steve Cohen, who has been in that seat for 20 years, decided that he would not run again at all. And I guess maybe the best way to put it is anointed State Senator London Lamar. And so she is now the chief competitor. She and State Rep. Justin Pearson are facing off. Pearson had gotten into the race last September or October and was taking on Cohen. And so now you've got a Cohen proxy in Senator London Lamar. You've got on the Republican side, Senator Brent Taylor. He says, make Memphis matter, even though he lives in a Memphis suburb and has been very aggressive. And his chief competition on the Republican side is State Rep. Todd Warner.
People at home might be thinking, why are we talking about Memphis on a Nashville podcast? But that district, the 9th, it stretches all the way to Nashville. And Holly, you in fact had a reporter, Adam Friedman, go out and sort of learn what, if anything, unites this massive district now.
Yeah, and the answer is not much. The district literally stretches from the Memphis suburbs. It goes rambling through rural West Tennessee, rural Middle Tennessee, down to Pulaski, Tennessee on the Alabama state line, and then up into the state's wealthiest county, one of the 20 wealthiest counties in the country, Williamson County. And about the only thing that Adam Friedman could find that people agreed on was housing costs. But, one of the people he talked to in Pulaski knew about the district, which frankly I think is something, because most people, they might know there's an election. They're not aware that there's been a redistricting. And this woman said to him, what do we have in common?
I think that those changes, like you're talking about with people who maybe still aren't even aware that their district has changed, will probably impact turnout in some crazy ways. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. But let's start talking about the biggest race in the state, the one we're seeing all the commercials for, Governor. Marie, who are the Republican candidates?
Oh, well, come on down. Marsha Blackburn, John Rose, and Monty Fritz. So, Holly, if someone truly has not been paying attention until today, just give us a quick rundown. Who are these people?
So, U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn is a bit of a juggernaut. She's been in office since I think 1994. She was elected as a state senator from Williamson County. She started the first Young Republicans chapter outside of East Tennessee in Williamson County in about 1986. And so she gets knocks for a lot of things. John Rose just put out a poll, an internal poll has been making the rounds that says her support is a mile wide and an inch deep. But the fact of the matter is she has supported literally hundreds of Republican lawmakers through her 30 years in politics. And I don't think you can discount her political savvy. And for years has run these campaign schools for young people in high school and college. And those folks are the ones who've spread out across the state and are her field troops. And then you have John Rose. He's a very, very bright person. He has started a couple of businesses and made money, but he also grew up on a farm near Cookeville, Tennessee. And the Rose Farm is a century farm, which means it has been operating for 100 years. And so he's got a bit of an agricultural background. He has been a big supporter of Future Farmers of America. He is self-funding his campaign largely, or We will see this week financial disclosures come out and see how much he raised, but he dropped $5 million of his own money into the campaign. And he's been pretty aggressive about taking Blackburn on. I don't think it's a stretch to say they are the front runners. And then we have State Rep Monty Fritz. And boy, he's an interesting character. Since he has been in office, he's had, I think, 2 or 3 terms. He has advocated for legislation to stop chemtrails, which is a false theory that the government is seeding clouds and seeding us with harmful agents. He has also been pretty open about the fact that he thinks women who have abortions probably do not deserve to live because they are committing, in his eyes, murder. I'm not even sure right wing is the word for him. And his followers are very, very ardent, but I don't think there are that many of them.
Well, so we are constantly seeing on social media and hearing stories about how Marcia is purposely dodging interviews, maybe in town halls and debates. Although she did sit down recently with Action 5 News in Memphis to say that she's not hiding from anything and just wants to keep talking to Tennesseans. Does she need to do more?
Here's my take on that. She is purposefully not doing debates or forums. The Lookout is a member of the Tennessee Press Association. I'm on the board. One of my hills to die on is that if you were running for office, you should be able to stand up with your opponents and address the public without a filter, without it being a county party or a partisan organization. And so the Tennessee Press Association tried to have a forum with the 3 leading Republican candidates, and she just didn't answer.
She didn't answer when we reached out for an interview either. Neither did John Rose, for the record.
Okay. Well, so Rose, I believe, did say that he would do a forum if she would. He did not want to do it with just Monty Fritz.
I can't imagine why not. Monty seems like such a fun guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that I disagree with that. I would want the other major candidate on stage with me as well.
Well, let's switch really quick and look at the Democratic primary field, which does exist. It's a wide field. And folks, if they would like to, can go back and listen to our interviews with candidates Jerry Green and Adam Ditch Kurtz. Those are both in our archives here at CityCast Nashville. Holly, who do you see rising to the top for this primary?
That's going to be Jerry Green. Like, I've heard of Adam Ditch Kurtz. I don't know anything about him. You guys know more than I do.
He's a musician.
Okay.
And he is endorsed by Kyle Gass from Tenacious D.
I was there. I witnessed that in person, live at the OG basement when he endorsed him.
Marie, let's also really quick talk about the race for Bill Hagerty's Senate seat. Bill is, of course, running again, but there's a big field of Democrats running to replace him.
Yes, the headline name here is Marquita Bradshaw, who surprised party establishment by winning the Democratic nomination for Senate in 2020, becoming the first Black woman to ever win a statewide race in Tennessee. Can she shock the world again?
I would not be surprised at all if she wins the primary because she has name recognition and she will, again, be the first person on the ballot on the Democratic primary.
Oh, the alphabet. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll get into these U.S. congressional districts that have been all swirled around, as well as the state, Senate, and House races. We're back with Holly McCall from the Tennessee Lookout. Let's talk about U.S. House districts. We have a new district here in the Davidson County area. District 4 has swooped in to replace the dearly departed District 5. This is Republican Scott Desjardins' seat, and he's got 3 challengers on the Republican side. He's also a doctor who is perhaps best known for having several affairs, at least 2 of them with his patients, and pressuring his mistress into an abortion. None of this information has mattered up until this point. Holly, can he hold on to the nomination?
It is pretty likely he does because, you know, the late State Senator Jim Tracy, who just passed on July 3rd, ran against him twice. He came within 38 votes of beating him in 2014.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 38 votes. And Tracy did not ask for a recall because he just thought it would be too much drama. So, you know, Desjardins continues to hang on. He has probably got the strongest Democratic opponent that he has potentially ever had. Well, I take that back. He had a guy named Chris Hale who ran against him a couple of cycles ago, who ran a pretty strong race. But there is Metro Councilman Mike Cortez is now in the 4th district. He was running in the 5th district, and He's running a really interesting race. I don't know that he's even going to win the primary, though, because he had to switch into it pretty late. And there's another woman, Victoria Broderick. She ran against Deja Arlay last time and is from sort of the heart of that district. So I don't know if she will win.
What do you think is interesting about the race that Councilmember Cortez is running?
He's run kind of a populist race. This is a pretty hard line to walk, but I think he has a way of appealing to Democrats and to Republicans. Like, the word populist has gotten ruined by Donald Trump, who is a faux populist. But Cortez addresses issues of like livability and finance that honestly should speak to everyone.
All right, well, let's turn our attention to my district, District 6. The Republican primary here to fill the seat being vacated by John Rose is the big head-to-head battle between Johnny Garrett and Van Hillary. Their ads also seem to be a contest to show who loves Trump more. Holly, these guys have been heavy hitters for a while. What do we know about them?
Oh, this is another good one. So I'd say the Garrett-Hillary race is a proxy for the Blackburn-Rose gubernatorial race. So Van Hillary was a congressman, and he was elected in the 1994 sort of red wave that Newt Gingrich ushered in. And then he ran for governor in 2002 and barely lost to Phil Bredesen. But since 2018, Van Hillary has been chief of staff for none other than U.S. Rep. John Rose.
Marie and I both sat up straight and went,
I know.
I covered Van Hillary's announcement last summer when he said that he was going to run for Congress again, and John Rose stood up and gave like a glowing, ringing endorsement of him. On the other side, we have Johnny Garrett, who rose to leadership in the state house. He served as the House whip, which means the person who gathers in the votes. He is basically managed by the same team that manages Marsha Blackburn and Brent Taylor. And that is the Baker Group, which is headed by Ward Baker. Ward Baker is considered Voldemort to Democrats. Garrett's issue is that the recent redistricting pretty much drew District 6, so it cuts out most of Sumner County, which is his base. The word on the street is that he took one for the team and was not happy, but will likely reap rewards down the road.
There are also 5 Democrats running in this primary, including Lori Bergman, who ran in the last cycle, Mike Crowley, who's a former Tennessee State Park Ranger and a Tennessee Tech grad, and Cheney Mosley, a veteran and agricultural educator who was in the race before the gerrymandering. Will that head start help him?
I think so. I hear a little bit of buzz just on social media amongst from Democratic types.
From an East Nashville perspective, he's been everywhere.
Okay.
I've seen Cheney Mosley more times than I've ever seen John Rose ever in my entire life. At least for those of us in the Nashville part of the district, that's exciting to have someone who's like physically present.
I mean, Lori Bergman has run again, so I don't know if it's going to be such a low name ID race that she wins because, again, top of the ballot. If you don't know anybody, maybe you recognize her name before she ran before. I think that one's a toss-up.
Let's turn our attention to District 7. Republican Matt Van Epps is running unopposed. But Holly, have we heard anything from him since he won the seat in the special election last fall against Afton Bain?
I keep forgetting that Matt Van Epps exists, to be completely honest.
Well, I will tell you this about Matt Van Epps. From a media standpoint, I get a ton of information from his office. We didn't hear a whole lot from Mark Green at all. I will say this for Van Epps. Like, he seems like a little bit of a cipher. You know, he looked almost like the perfect AI-generated candidate in the last race. He's nice looking.
Oh, my God. He really
Well,
did.
I mean, he's nice looking. He went to West Point. He has an attractive and accomplished wife, a baby, got endorsed by Trump. Honestly, like, I just think, and I'm sure you're going to ask me about Democratic candidates. There's another solid field of Democratic candidates.
Well, that Democratic primary field does really, at least in my opinion, kind of come down to 2 men, State Rep Vincent Dixie and Darden Copeland, both of whom ran in the primary versus Bain. I mean, Holly, are either of them campaigning differently this cycle?
You know, it seems to be a reboot of the last campaign. I mean, these guys, God bless their hearts. I mean, they ran for this office less than a year ago. Darden Copeland, to be completely transparent, I worked with him for 4 years, and he is very not just intellectually sharp, but he is also politically savvy and knows how to run a campaign.
Right. But Vince, meanwhile, did win Davidson County.
But Vincent Dixie, he didn't just win Davidson County. He crushed Davidson County. I mean, he wiped everybody out there, even Afton Bain. I would not call that primary. I think it's going to be one of those two.
Let's really quickly dive into some state, House, and Senate races. Our local Democrats here in Davidson County are all running unopposed in their primaries, but there is one open seat that everyone is racing in to fill the void. It's Caleb Hemmer's seat in House District 59. Yes.
That is like...
Holly has raised her hand and covered the camera. She's so excited to talk about this one.
If she had a buzzer, she would push it.
I'm making noises. Go ahead, Whitney, introduce it, but it's so interesting.
Well, we've got a field of 4 candidates: Rich Ewing, Angie Lawless, Mark Proctor, and Beth West. I will point out that the Tennessean just broke the news that Angie Lawless wrote a letter seeking leniency for Cade Cothran because she was his landlord, which I don't know that that'll matter to anyone but me because I think I'm the last remaining Cade Cothran sicko on the planet. But Holly, okay, you have opinions. Please share them.
Yeah, so the Tennessean probably got the same letter we got about that. I imagine the same anonymous source sent that letter to every media outlet in town. To me, that is not a full story. I actually met Angie when I was covering the Cothran and Cassida trials last year. So when I got that anonymous letter, it didn't come as a surprise. But it is interesting that she has a relationship with, I guess, like you would consider almost these Republican supervillains. And she's running in a Democratic primary.
Right.
And again, like when I met her, she told me at the time that she'd been Cade's landlord. And so it's certainly not something she has openly mentioned in this current race, because why would you do that? But now it's on the streets.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being somebody's landlord.
Right. Arguing for leniency, But will that make a difference? Because she actually does have a lot of Democratic support, or at least a lot of Democratic financial support. I saw an invitation to a fundraiser that she's having, and it's got some Democratic stalwarts. Some of your listeners will recognize names like Charles Robert Bone. You've got Mark Proctor in this race, though, who is another, I think, interesting figure. He is he's gay, and he's a retired state trooper. And Mark Proctor told me, he was like, hey, we need more women. We do need more women in the legislature. But what about the first married gay man who was in law enforcement? He's been endorsed by Phil Bredesen. He's been endorsed by former Mayor Carl Dean. I don't think you can just say he's establishment. There's a lot more to him than that.
Speaking of who's supporting whom, then you've got Beth West, seems to have the campaign support of a lot of the groups that coalesced around Afton Bain in that District 7 race, right? You've got the sort of the East Nashtivists crowd. They all seem to be working their butt off on the doors for Beth. I think it might come down to like what faction has the power in Nashville right now.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's interesting about Beth, you brought up her support from sort of the Afton Bain group, and I think this will be a little bit of a commentary on how powerful of a queen maker is Afton Bain. I don't want to veer off into this, but she supported a couple of candidates in the May Metro primaries that won, and so I'm interested to see if Beth West pulls this out. She's a first-time candidate as well. I would consider doing a story on sort of the Bain influence, not to take away from Beth West, not to take away from her as a person in her own right. And then there's Rick Ewing, whose wife Sandy is a Metro Council person. On his last financial disclosure, he'd raised about $50,000, which at the time was a respectful amount. I just don't see or hear I don't see the same level of sort of participation in the race as I hear from the other 3 candidates. But, what do I know? Maybe he's going to shock us all.
Oh, you know a lot. And then finally, the last contested race lingering around is the State Senate District 17. This is Mark Pody's current seat. He's the only Republican who represents a part of Davidson County. The majority of his district is in Wilson County, but he has the areas sort of around Percy Priest. So he's got a challenger, Butch Baker. Is there any chance this could be tight/interesting?
My take now would be that Pody wins, in part because the power of incumbency is something. While his politics may be offensive to Democrats, he was the Senate sponsor for the bill that would have created a murder penalty for women who had abortions. He ultimately did not end up running that bill because I think he saw, and I'm going to give credit to Sam Stockard with The Lookout, who broke that story because Pody admitted to him, like, I don't have the votes, I'm not going to run it. But like his politics might be offensive to Democrats, but they aren't to Republicans. And if you're running against an incumbent, as Butch Baker is, you really have to give people a reason to vote against the incumbent. And I don't know that that's going to happen.
We've also got a bunch of state judge retention questions. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know what those are. So for folks like myself who need to do research before voting, what do they want to do?
That is a great question. And you're asking me something I do not know a whole lot about, but I would guess that is for state Supreme Court.
Yeah. And like Eastern District of Appeals, that kind of stuff.
That's one of those, I hate to say this, do your own research. The state Supreme Court retention, that comes up every 4 years. And the last time there was a serious contest about that was in 2014. And then the Republican House Speaker at the time, I think it was Ron Ramsey, started a pact to try to take out democratically aligned Supreme Court justices. There aren't any democratically aligned Supreme Court justices anymore. And it's such a low information race.
Well, and it ends up being the kind of thing, too, where, okay, let's say you vote to replace them instead of retain them.
Right.
Governor Bill Lee will still be naming.
That's correct.
At least for the time being. I will say this, if anybody out there can hear me and knows what best practices is for the judge retention questions, email us at nashville@citycast.fm. I'm being completely serious. We would love your advice. So holler at us. We'll put it in our newsletter or on our Friday News Roundup if we get it. Okay, last question from me. This is also the general election for Davidson County. And we're kind of not talking about it because it was all Democratic candidates who ran unopposed. No Republicans qualified for the ballot. But here's my question, Holly. Is that actually a good thing? Like Lamar Alexander told us we needed 2 strong parties.
Look, there are a lot of things I don't agree with Lamar Alexander on still, but I don't think a supermajority is ever good. It's not good in the legislature. I, again, remember when there was a Democratic supermajority, and if I can say the word dumbass, they were a bunch of dumbasses. There was a lot of petty corruption, sexual antics, terrible behavior, drinking openly on the House floor. Now we have a Republican supermajority. And frankly, I get the desire of Davidson County is still a Democratic city, a blue dot, if you will, in the state. And so I understand there's a desire to have control where you can in a largely red state. But I would agree. I don't think it's good to have supermajorities really anywhere because it takes all the balance out. People don't have to talk to each other. It ends up being much less productive, I think, for voters and constituents.
Well, I learned that back in 2022, the midterm primary elections, the percentage was 33.3% of registered voters came out to vote for these midterm elections. Very low when compared to the national average. So how do you think turnout's going to be this time? And do you think people are maybe more engaged because of what we witnessed with the gerrymandering? Do you think that would drive out more voters?
Well, I never have a simple answer to your questions, right? So I do think that certainly Democrats should be motivated to get out this time because midterms are always a reflection of the sitting president. I do think there are Democrats who will be motivated by the redistricting. On the other hand, part of the redistricting that happened in May was that voters are not notified of any changes in their districts.
Oh, I got a new voter registration card, even though my district didn't change.
Me too. I have it right here.
But that might just be a Davidson thing.
That's correct. I got one in Williamson. I can tell you right now, Williamson County's election commission is very efficient. But most counties, that's a lot of work for small counties. And the law says you don't have to notify people. And so even in Memphis, will Shelby County do it? I don't know. It's a democratically controlled county, but they've got a lot of inefficiencies in their county government. And so let's just say there's an election. Let's assume that. And then you show up to vote and then they go, oh, honey, this is not your district anymore. You're not in District 5. You're in District 7. Look, man, we have the luxury and the privilege of paying attention to this. A lot of people are just trying to put bread on their table, get their kids educated, keep a job, pay the bills. And if you're told after you take time to go to a polling place, hey, this is not your district, like a lot of people aren't going to be able or willing even to find out where they were supposed to go. And so I don't think we know how it's going to play out yet.
I'll be curious. I think a lot of pundits were like, oh, and now people will be angry and they will march to the polls with their pitchforks to take back democracy. I kind of think everybody's busy and hot and doesn't have any money. And
that's correct.
I'm really worried about turnout personally, but I hope I'm wrong. I love it when I'm wrong.
And look, like voters have short memories. So a lot of the people who were angry in May, by August, are they still going to be angry? I mean, school's starting at the time this primary is happening. So it's not that people don't care. I don't want to say that. It's not apathy necessarily. It is that people don't know they have a life, and you can only be angry for so long without your head exploding.
Early voting is starting on Friday, July 17th. That's this Friday, and it runs through Saturday, August 1st. That's taking place at all the usual locations. They've added 3 new ones: Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee on Belmont Boulevard, the new Election Commission office on Murfreesboro Pike. I don't know if that's a new office or if they just wanted it to be new because it's a new place to vote. And then the Scarrett Bennett Center on 18th Avenue South. Holly, we're so grateful that you were here. As always, you know a lot about things, and we like to listen to you talk.
Well, thank you for having me. I always enjoy you all giving me the opportunity to run my mouth and flap my gums.
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Nashville neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our CityCast Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!